วัสดีครับ Say hello. My name Den CFBT Thailand. I went to the offer for the professional like you. Who are you?
So my name is Shan Raffel. I'm a firefighter from Brisbane, Australia. I served for 38 years in my local state fire service, and I took early retirement from the fire service in 21, midway through 2021. And since then I've been heavily focused on my international development. So my passion now is developing firefighters around the world to instructor level in CFBT.
What is the story for the CFBT with you and me, and how to the starting up, when and why?
So if you look at the original origins of CFBT, it goes back to the 1970s, 1975, Christa Giselson, but it was difficult to get it accepted. It wasn't until the mid-1980s that it started to become accepted in Sweden, and it wasn't until the late 1990s that it started to be around in the world. And I started my program in Australia in 1997, so I was the first one in that part of the world to initiate CFBT. And around about that time, I was looking on the internet, and there was very little information about CFBT. You wouldn't see anybody doing anything. And I came across this site in Thailand, and I was really amazed because these two brothers from Thailand had this really advanced CFBT training centre, and they've got this RB90, which is the Rescue Board 90 turnout gear, which was state of the art. And I'm thinking, where did these guys get this equipment from, and what are they doing? So I became very curious about these guys because they seem to be doing something really extraordinary for any part of the world. And so I made contact with Dan and Dunk, I think in the early 2000s. We had communication backwards and forwards, and the more I communicated, the more interested I became in what these guys, the extraordinary work these guys were doing, because they were really on the leading edge of what was happening in the world, and it was so new to outside of the UK at that stage. And so I think that we got together. I think the first time we met face to face was Edderschutz in 2005.
Yes.
And then I think that I did a detour after I finished in Germany. I came to your training centre.
Yes, in 2008.
2008.
Yes.
And I had a look and I thought, wow, this is just amazing what these guys are doing. And since then, we've just grown together, built up a very strong professional relationship and also a very strong friendship. So I've been coming to Sweden for nearly 20 years now, to Thailand, sorry, for nearly 20 years. And I'm just amazed at how the site has developed, how it's grown, and it's just been an absolute pleasure to be involved in the development over the last nearly 20 years.
Okay, thank you. And the next, please say about what is certified of the IFE certified with you. Is what's the meaning?
So I've always wanted to have some sort of international standard for CFBT. We have a standard for live fire and FPA 1403, and there are other standards, but there was no specific standard for CFBT. The English did some really good work in the late 1990s to develop a curriculum. And since then, there were numerous attempts around the world to get together and agree on an international standard. And none of them worked. So by 2017, I said, you know what? I'm going to make an international standard. So I referenced very heavily the work done in the UK, linked it up with the NFPA 1403 standard, looked at many standards around the world, consulted with my network of friends and colleagues around the world, and we developed this curriculum. And then I thought, well, what does it mean if I say, oh, I have an international program, my program is the best? I mean, everybody says that. So it was very important to me that I had an external group validate the recognition of the training. And so it took me about 2 years, but I went through the Institution of Fire Engineers. They're a very large international organisation, over 100 years old, about 12 or 13,000 members right across the planet. And so they've been doing recognitions for about 15 to 20 years. So I went through that process, and the first courses I got recognised were my International CFBT Instructor Level 1 and my International CFBT Instructor Level 2, and that was in 2018. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I also got my International Tactical Ventilation Instructor qualified. So what that means is that they audit me, they revalidate me every 3 years, so lots of hurdles to jump over. But what it means is that I can use their logo, and that means that this is international. It's not just Shan Raffel, it's not just his opinion, this is internationally recognised around the world as meeting a top standard.
Let you talk about from the TechVent, what we do.
So tactical ventilation, we have more time to focus on the fundamentals of firefighting tactics and then the techniques that firefighters can use to teach their own students. So the objective is that at the end of the 5 days, they have a depth of knowledge about not just positive pressure ventilation, but natural ventilation and how to combine ventilation with firefighting strategies in a synergistic manner. So taking some tools that are relevant to ventilation, mixing them with some tools relevant to firefighting, and when we mix the two together correctly, we have a more powerful effect. So that's the focus. So at the end of that course, they should have all the skills required to go back and teach their own people thoroughly about natural ventilation and also forced ventilation, and then how to combine that with other firefighting techniques and methods to get a better outcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, why we choose the training at the CFBT Thailand?
Well, you know, I've trained in 27 countries. I've seen a lot of training centres around the world. I've seen bigger and more expensive training centres than CFBT Thailand. But what impressed me from the very first visit was all the props are practical. Every single one of them is about the fundamentals, the foundational knowledge. And I've seen training centres that cost many millions of dollars, but they're not using, they can't create realistic conditions. So very expensive, but not useful. We need realistic conditions, and you guys have been doing that for 25 or more years. So it's a very, very practical training centre, and that's exactly what I need to build these foundational skills. Also, the support I get at CFBT Thailand is second to none. You know, I've been to some training centres where we have to get all our gear and load the containers and then clean them out. And so what I love is the support staff at your training centre. They just make it so much easier. Everything is in place and efficient and effective. It makes for very good training.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to say from the firefighter, would you like to invite, would you like to enroll, but not yet? What would you like to say for them?
Look, I'm very passionate about CFBT. It is the foundational knowledge required to be a good firefighter, to be a safe firefighter. And that knowledge is also required to become a good officer. And it sounds silly that we're talking about this fundamental knowledge being missing, but it has been missing from the entire world's fire service. And it's only in the last 25 years that we've taken the knowledge back. And one of the reasons we were lacking that knowledge is because the science wasn't there. It's only in the last 15 years that the science has proven the work of the Swedish pioneers. And now we know we can't keep doing firefighting the way we were doing in the 80s and 90s. The world has changed. The built environment has changed. And really, this is the absolute essentials for understanding fire behaviour. If you can't do that, then you're just practising a routine and hoping it works. And that's not very safe and it's not very efficient.
Thank you for talking about everything.